This is 101 Country, WBDC, and in cooperation with 18, our sister station WJTS, and the In.form series, we're going to be running a series and airing a series of programs having to do with Suicide Prevention Month. This is Suicide Prevention Month, and joining us in the studio is Janet Schnell, who, Janet, you recently got a new job, I guess?
I have a new position. I'm a contractor with the federal government as a suicide post-vention subject matter expert.
Okay, and you're still involved, though, with survivors of suicide.
I absolutely am president of Survivors of Suicide and still working here in Dubois County, so I am virtual.
Okay, all right. And we also have with us Jessica Miller. Now, Jessica, you're the, tell me what, you had like, I asked you what you did off the air, and you had a real long time with things.
So I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have a private practice here in Jasper, rooted counseling and consulting, but I also work for In.form or Elevance, and I am one of the behavioral health case managers. I also run the substance use disorder programming for the state of Indiana. With that, I do a whole lot of things. One of the programs that we also have is a suicide prevention program. So that's with Medicaid, Medicare, all of that.
And this is the first in a series of programs that'll be on WBDC and 18 WJTS having to do with Suicide Prevention Month. You two are dealing with it, I guess, every day from the past and current and looking to the future to prevent that sort of thing.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about, I guess the first thing is, how do you know if someone is suicidal?
So I would say the number one indicator would be talking about suicide. No one who is thinking about it isn't just joking about it or is saying it just to get a comment from someone. If you're thinking about it, you're talking about it. So if someone you love is talking about it, ask them directly, are you suicidal? And then get help. 988 is the national number. Call it, text it. You're going to get connected to someone who is trained in suicide prevention.
And it seems like here in our community, we tend to just kind of overlook it. If someone says suicide, we tend to be like, oh, they're just looking for attention. Hello, maybe they are. And that's one way we need to definitely address it is by asking directly, are you thinking about suicide? You know, as a licensed clinical social worker also, I notice that people sometimes will use the word suicide directly, and other times they'll use things like, you know, I want to just go to sleep and just not wake up. And at that point, it's my job then to step back and say, okay, hold on, what does that mean? Do you want to go to sleep, not wake up because there's so much stress, so much depression that's happening? Or is it because you haven't been sleeping very well and you just want to be able to get a good night's sleep? Two different meanings.
Well, it seems to me there's probably a really fine line, and maybe some people are afraid to get involved because they don't want to offend you, because all you really meant is you just need to get some extra sleep, but maybe you really do have a serious problem. How do you... I would think for me that would be hard to decide, when do I step in? What should I do?
Anytime you have a question, ask directly. Don't skirt around it, ask.
Okay, so if I get involved and I say something, okay, now I just opened a big can of worms for myself and I'm going to really get involved. Is that the case, or is it really, no, then as long as you can get them to talk to somebody else, because I'm not an expert.
Right. Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why I see a lot of people who don't want to tell me that they're thinking about suicide, because their automatic assumption is that I'm going to send them to the hospital for an assessment for inpatient treatment. That's not always true. It's more that let's open the discussion. Let's start talking. Let's find out what's going on, because not everybody needs to have inpatient because they're thinking about suicide. Maybe the thoughts are there, but there are no actions. There's no plans. But as a social worker that we can sit down and we can talk about it, open the conversation.
So I noticed this. I see somebody's in a situation, or maybe even myself, somebody listening going, you know, I really have a problem. What do they do? Who should they reach out to? What sort of help is out there? I know there's a lot of help out there, but when you want that help, you don't seem to find it.
Right. So on the back of every insurance card is a crisis line. Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield has one, and we have a great hospital program. They have the CAPE team, Crisis and Intervention Assessment Team at Memorial Hospital, the 988, which is the National Suicide Hotline. The VOA has one.
Yes.
Deaconess Cross Point has one. There are numerous suicide hotlines out there.
And so just by making a phone call and talking to someone at 3:30 in the morning when no one else is open, you can call those hotlines and you can talk to someone who's specially trained to talk about suicide, talk about crises, talk about what's happening in your life, so that can help de-stress and figure out what they need next.
And you don't even have to talk. You can text the 988 line.
So this doesn't mean that you're actually going to have to sit down with somebody and meet with somebody.
Right.
Which can also be scary and another reason not to get help. But if you're doing it on the phone or text it,
Yes.
okay. Well, you younger people sure have a different way of doing things.
Well, and that's really what we're trying to do, is really meet the needs for all, in person, virtually, through telehealth, or through calling, or through texting.
We're going to meet you wherever you are.
Right.
Now, if somebody is in that situation, and then I guess you need to have some sort of skills to cope with that. Let's talk about coping skills.
So there are a coping skill for every kind of crisis. The one we wanted to focus on today is socialization. One of the warning signs talking about suicide, isolation. Get out, hang out with friends. Maybe not even leave your house. Have a friend over. Watch a movie. Eat some popcorn. Just be in the same room. Body doubling is amazing. Just be with somebody.
So you not necessarily be alone.
Right.
Sometimes you just want to be alone, and that's okay.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Okay, maybe that's sometimes how some people reboot. But other times, if you're in a situation, you need to be with somebody.
Just with somebody in the same room.
Maybe taking a walk or something like
right.
that. Or talking to them on the phone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be a coping skill. How do you learn that? How do you take that step?
I can say that an excellent idea is to have suicide prevention training, because we actually walk through what we call open communication. What kind of body stance do you need to have, what kind of eye contact, what you need to do. But suicide prevention training is so important because it helps to ease the fear of talking to someone about suicide. So yeah, there's a way that you want to sit. There's a way that you want to present yourself when you're listening to someone, not looking at the clock saying, I only have 5 minutes to talk. Tell me about your thoughts of suicide. That doesn't work. We really want more of an open communication, a relaxed feel. And that can be with anyone can do this. This doesn't have to be a trained mental health provider. Listening to what our kids have to say, what our friends have to say, is really important in our world, to be able to have that open communication so that they know that they can talk to you and share some of the problems that they're experiencing.
Is if I know someone is suicidal, is it something I should talk to other people about? Or does that make the situation worse?
No, if you feel like you don't have the skill set to get them what they need, absolutely go to someone who is qualified. That number is not just for you, it's for someone else who needs that help.
Okay, and that's the 988 number?
988, you can contact your local sheriff's department. We've done that several times as clinicians. Hey, I'm really worried about this person. Can you send an officer out to check on them?
And that may, I guess, really the policemen oftentimes are that one person that they're with, so they're not alone.
Yes.
Right.
So they're not necessarily going there to take care of something, because policemen try to be always helping. That's why they had Public Safety Day just a couple of weeks ago, is for people to understand that they are human beings helping human beings.
Yes, absolutely.
I'd imagine they see a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is there like a statistic that you can give me that would just shock people? I mean, I don't want to shock people, but I think sometimes, that doesn't happen in my backyard. That doesn't happen in my family.
Just released this morning was the American Psychological Association had identified here in Indiana that the ages between 10 and 24-year-old, 50% of our Hoosier population is depressed. 50%. So the way our government is trying to address it is that we need to have more mental health providers inside the school system. So that's pretty shocking when we know that our kids who've been through COVID, all these problems that they've experienced, things that we as adults have never experienced, that now they're showing depression. And, when we look at statistics, that's actually very common when it comes after a pandemic. Now is when we see that increase in depression. And we can't take it lightly when they're talking about suicide. We need to be able to do, like Jessica had said earlier too, part of coping is socialization. Well, what did COVID did?
It got rid of socialization, yeah.
Yeah.
What can people, is there like a sign they should look for? I mean, or do they have to say things like, I am suicidal, or is it more like, I guess what you said.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things people might say that would be a trigger or something to watch for?
I think a big one would be any major behavioral change. If you're usually peppy and you're now more isolated or withdrawn, or you really like softball and you're just not into it, you're not going to practices, or you liked going bowling and you're not going bowling anymore.
But more of over a long period, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Depression doesn't always lead to suicide.
Right.
I mean, when people, it's okay to be depressed. Sometimes that
absolutely.
happens. Right.
It's a part of being a human.
Right. It's just that when it turns that corner.
When it starts impacting your life significantly.
And it's up to, do people themselves recognize that? If I was suicidal, do I generally recognize I'm suicidal, or is that really something somebody else is going to have to recognize in me?
I think it depends upon that person. You know, sometimes you have that education to recognize that this isn't what we call normal, but change behavior. And other people don't recognize it at all, but others do. A lot of times family members, friends will pick up on it just by hearing the discussion. Like when my brother died by suicide 30 years ago, he didn't recognize that he was depressed. He didn't and he had been to 2 different doctors to talk about ringing in his ears and pain in his knees. Neither doctor picked up on it either. So we've, in the 30 years since Kent's died, we really have learned a lot. But do we expect everyone to know everything? No.
Just to know as much as you can.
Right.
To at least take a step.
Right.
And I guess, again, what if they can't call the 988 number? Is there another number they should call? Is there some... Let's say I think I know somebody who might be suicidal, but it's not like an immediate situation. Of course, I guess you really never know that either.
Right.
But could I call your office and say, hey, I think we need to worry about this person? Is that possible? Is that something that happens? Or does it need to be, man, as soon as you notice something, I'm thinking they'll be offended is what I'm worried about. It's like, you're suicidal. I'm going to call 988. I'm afraid that I'm going to offend them, and that would set them off even worse.
I would rather offend my best friend than have them dead.
Okay. And there is help. I mean, it's mostly just getting somebody to...
Get them connected.
Odd thing is, once suicidal, always suicidal?
No.
Okay, so you just get past that point in your life. Because sometimes it gets to be too much.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Although it's never really too much, but we think it is too much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we can have a lot of things that are happening, like when we say when it rains, it pours. And things can start out with a little bit, but all of a sudden it becomes a lot. That's when it can become a big problem.
Okay. Now, again, where do they go for help?
So locally, so locally we have...
You do nationally, right?
There you go.
I don't want
Okay.
to take it. Yeah.
Let's go, Jessica.
Let's go
locally,
local,
there
then
you
let's go national. Okay.
So locally, we have lots of private practice clinicians. We've got my business, Rooted Counseling Consulting. We've got Creative Thoughts and Counseling. We've got Piece by Piece. We've got Life Springs. We've got Memorial Hospital. We've got lots of facilities out in Evansville. We've also got, I know I'm forgetting some...
It's there. You just got to look for it.
Yes.
We have resources.
Yes.
So if you're interested, contact Jessica, contact Janet, and we can send you the resource list for Dubois County and the surrounding counties.
Okay. Now, what about nationally? Since that's not what you do.
Yeah. We always go back to 988. It's a very good organization. They're specially trained. If you don't feel like if you're afraid of offending your friend, this is what I've done before. I dial 988 and I give them the phone.
Okay. Do it for them. Help them out.
Do it for them. Yep. And sit there with them and let them be able to talk. We've even texted before where I can help respond. This is what it's like, and to respond back. So we've actually done where I'm there with them as they're talking. So yes, 988 is going to be our national resource. And again, talk, text, because they're the ones who are specialized, and they're not sending the police to your door because they're worried about suicide. They're there to talk, to figure out what's the next part of the resources.
Okay. Can you Google it? Is that something to do too? And then lots of information will come up. I mean, maybe kind of dumb, but everybody's on their phones. That's what they do. But
even on Facebook, there's a link there. If you type in suicide hotline, it'll give you the link to 988.
But maybe to not be so suicidal, stay away from Facebook, because sometimes that can that leads you down a bad path.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else that you ladies would like to add?
We do have a really good resource here in Indiana. Also, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is Indiana-based, and they have a lot of really good resources. When you're thinking about suicide, or if you're a lost survivor like myself, they have a lot of good resources if you'd like to be able to read on their website, and we can get you some books and information also.
Okay, and information is out there. Look for it.
Right.
Or tune in again in about a week, as we'll be doing another one of these shows. We'll talk some more about Suicide Prevention Month here in September.
Yes.
Ladies, thank you very much for being with us. We've had Jessica Miller and Janet Schnell. Thank you both for coming in with survivors of suicide. This is 101 Country, WBDC, and 18 WJTS In.form.